You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 224, and it is another Friday edition of the pod. My name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram. With me co-hosting as usual is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. John's away for the next couple of episodes, but he should be back with us after that. Okay, so off the top, I want to talk about the recently announced Topps Exchange program that will be taking place at the upcoming National later this month. And it's essentially what Panini did already, where you got to trade in your open redemptions for a special card that they package. It might be one of the few things Panini did right, because it got a lot of positive feedback. Now, Topps is offering a similar program, and it's essentially if you have an open redemption card older than 100 days, right? So it's the case has been open for 100 days, hasn't been redeemed yet. With the total value of the redemptions at $100 or more, you're eligible for the program. Okay? You can also combine open redemption cards to hit that $100 threshold. So you might have two redemptions. One, they're both worth $50. That adds up to $100. You qualify for the Topps Exchange program. And finally, what you get in return is a card that's worth anywhere, they say, between $50 and upwards to about $7,500. So it could be any, that's a pretty wide range. So just want to get your thoughts, Hyung, on this.
I think, one, it seems like they're addressing their redemption issues. So it's I guess a good thing that something's going on, because I had redemptions as well, which sucks because I just got them after they were way over 100 days, but I got them. I forgot they even existed. But I got them delivered. I would have loved to use this part of this program, because to me, those other redemptions were kind of like non-existent anyways, right? But Overall, I think it's a good thing, just because nobody wants to wait for redemptions. And Topps was already addressing that there won't be any redemptions moving forward. So to me, it seems like it's been kind of like a cleanup. How can we address this backlog of things that we could kind of just get over? So they came up with this marketing strategy where they didn't lose too much money, because I'm sure they're using the same cards that they have around anyways for situations like this, and then doing it in a repack where most people might not care. And it seems like, hey, if you have a $20 redemption, but then you're guaranteed a car that's $50 or more, because I think you need each submission has to be $100 per
more.
Per card. And then if you have $150 worth, you'd still get one. You would need to bump it up to $200 worth of redemptions, and then you get two of them, right? Yeah, and then you could do a max of 10 or something like that. Yeah, so I think it's an easy way to get rid of the redemptions that you aren't even planning on doing. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of pushback, but I think it's just the easiest solution to kind of make it easier for Topps and Fanatics to kind of get over this hump.
Yep, I agree with what you said. It's essentially a repack service for them to get rid of this whatever backlog of redemptions they have. One question I do have, and they probably have an answer to it, but I didn't see it on their press release, is how is the value of redemptions determined?
Right.
How does why is this worth $20, $50? So that's a question that I had. Maybe they have a list and they give you the value. But yeah, I believe Daryl, our hobby friend Daryl, took advantage of this with the Panini program. And, when he was on last time, he was showing me some of those cards, like Steph Curry on card auto. That's definitely worth more than $50, So you could get some bangers for sure through this exchange program.
So that was like for the Sparkle pack, or was it for like a separate exactly what Panini did? Because I know some years Panini would give Sparkle packs for redemption, and then they would give, I don't know if it's the white box, black box thing, where there's a whole different, I don't know if that was part of it, but it has to be something worth it, I guess.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good question. I can follow up with Daryl. He listens to this podcast every week, so maybe he can message us when he hears this episode and tell us what the exact details were.
I think he got sparkle packs, but I could be wrong. Let us know, DC.
Okay. My bad if it is. All right, well, speaking of our hobby friend Daryl, he is going to the National, and I was chatting with him recently about potentially doing an interview while he was in Cleveland to give us the scoop on how the National is this year. So that's actually our discussion for today's episode. Since we're not going though, the question I had was, what do you hope to hear comes out of the National? And I asked because we obviously don't want the National to fail or to be a subpar experience for those that do go. But I'm really interested in going to the National next year in Chicago, and I want it to be always growing and evolving, right? So what kind of things do you hope to see or hear from, some of the content creators that are going there? And I'm sure they're going to post their videos and social media posts. What kind of things do you hope to hear that any news that comes out of the National this year?
I think for me, the National brand itself has been weakened over the past, few years. Before COVID, it was the thing to kind of go to. So I'd like for the National to kind of stick to their guns and why people enjoyed that experience in the first place, and try to not become kind of like the new Fanatics that, trying to be innovative in that way, where I think the Fanatics Fest, or what was it called? The one in New York. Yeah.
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 Fanatics Fest. Yeah.
Fanatics Fest. I think, they're going to serve its own purpose, totally different from the National. So I want to, I hope that they still keep that kind of brand that they've always kept it as, because people go there because it's a community. They're used to seeing fellow people once a year, and they see them at the National. There's some big time trades and purchases going. And at least beforehand, the rule at the National before was like, bring as much cash as you can, because a lot of people make good cash deals there. But I don't know if it's the same now as before. I guess even with technology saying, well, we just PayPal you, it's a lot easier. But I like that it has the brand image of kind of more personable. It's not a corporate event. It's going to be more, dealer to dealer, community based, making trades, looking for your Grail card, being around, thousands and thousands of like-minded people who enjoy the hobby. So I think there's, like I said, there's a lot of things that they need to do to kind of keep up with the times. I just hope that they become innovative in their kind of own strength, if that makes sense.
Right. No, totally. Even as you were talking, you made me rethink some of the positions that I held, which was like, do something to compete better with Fanatics. And maybe that's not the right strategy, because Fanatics will have the money to outmarket them, to make things really shiny and appealing to a wider range of, not just sports card collectors, but sports fans. So they have a kind of a different demographic that they're dealing with, whereas kind of what you're alluding to, the National is known for collectors, for card enthusiasts, right. So maybe you double down and play into that strength, right?
And just to mention, I think one thing that's impressive is their list of autographs. The players they have name after name, but what I will say that's interesting, that is pretty funny, they're all guys that we grew up watching. Yeah. So to me, it's like, that's what we're talking about. And I'm sure like somebody like Wemby would show up in Fanatics Fest, or, some hot new stud comes to Fanatic Fest, as opposed to the Nationals. You have guys like Fred McGriff, Roberto Alomar, like, Mariano Rivera, like Albert Pujols. There's a lot of big names going, but they're a lot more old school. So I think it goes hand in hand with the demographics that are expected to be there as well.
Yeah, true. For me, I think, we talk about how they can grow and evolve, and what I like to hear is, none of the stuff that we heard before, Wi-Fi is horrible, or the AC is, on and off. Like, you got to fix those core issues. You want them to have a good experience and not feel uncomfortable, like physically speaking, at the national. And I know that's a turnoff for some people, but I would love to see new vendors, people setting up for the first time, and maybe new activations. Yeah, just being more creative with it. But yeah, I don't know beyond that.
You mentioned the debacle of last year. I think that's standard with everything. It's like, that's kind of like the respect you get and what people remember. So for instance, AC in the middle of summer, like you can never have that happen. Like that is kind of like the worst case scenario, because these are basically things I tell my team too. I manage a sales team. It's like, you gotta have the basic thing. You gotta show up. Right. And those are one of the principal things that if you're hosting an event this big, that can never happen, or you need to figure out a solution ASAP to that, because that's what people remember. And this event's not just like 2 days or 1 day. This is 5 days. This is people that are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to, be at this event both as a vendor and, a traveler or a hobbyist, because at the end of the day, you got to get your hotels. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big misconception. It's like, I took a look, a 10 by 15 booth, still like $1,300. Mm-hmm. And then after like hotel, travel, meals, like 5 days. Yeah. And it made me think, man, if you're not like a dealer, like an actual dealer that has this as a business, it's like, I don't understand what justification it would be to kind of
go. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless it's just straight for the experience. And I get it. If you could trade off that as much money as it costs for the experience, and you have more of a free experience than anything, then I think it's a great move to do that. And I think most people do it. They try to recoup as much money. They have good inventory, so they would partner up with, a few guys to get a booth. At least they have some movement where they're not necessarily trying to find the deals. They make the deals come to them. Yeah. So I could see that side of things, and then the rest is vendors. But I think this is the big national moneymaker for them. So I just hope that they reinvest it into getting this better in the future, instead of someone just, being happy with the profits and, this is just a payday for someone.
Yeah, man, you read my mind. Like, honestly, if you're not a vendor or dealer and you go into it, like just as a person looking to get some deals, you forget that you're paying upwards to, more than $1,000 just to get there, for, depending on where you live. And you're not, it's not easy to get that back just on buying and selling, and I think people forget about that. So if you're just going for the experience, which is what I was also going to say, if the AC is not working, the Wi-Fi is not good, that experience is not going to be pleasant. Right. And what are the chances that you would want to go back and spend another $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for the 4 or 5 days you're there, And so it does, I think event organizers, especially at the national, have to really think about that, and maybe that involves changing up the venue, if the AC and Wi-Fi is not good at where they're, where they've always hosted it, maybe you look around, and that's probably easier said than done, to find a really big space. I get it. But, you can't just kind of continue to do the same thing year after year and hope that, people will forgive you year after year. So, for sure. So and that's kind of leads into what, I want to talk about next, and we'll end off here, is a few hot takes that I had, okay? Maybe they're not so hot, but just some outside ideas, okay? And I was just looking at Cage, the lawyer's YouTube video, his latest one, and he was saying that how he's not going to the national this year, and he named a couple of reasons. But one of them is convenience and the Cleveland location. And I've heard it from more than just Cage's video, but other people we know that say Cleveland is like not ideal. Like all the hotels are 25 minutes away. So you got to Uber or taxi or find a way to get to the venue each day. And we talked about, adding cost. That certainly adds cost. And it's not as convenient just to like walk to the show like it is in the Chicago location, where
Right.
all the hotels are kind of attached to this convention center, which is convenient, right? So one of my ideas, why don't you just keep it in Chicago year after year? Don't do this Cleveland one year. I hope Atlantic City is off the table now. I've yet to hear one positive thing about Atlantic City.
It's
right?
the worst, yeah.
So just to keep it in Chicago, right? That's one of my ideas because, overwhelmingly, anyone that goes to the shows in Chicago will have more of a positive experience. And then my other one is, I guess this depends more on how Fanatics Fest does. And one of the main reasons why I'm only going to one is that they're so close together, like less than a month apart.
Right.
I don't know if moving the date of the national is an option, right? Like, how about you say May?
Right.
And you know what? It won't be as hot in May. If you can't fix the AC issue, it won't be that big of a deal, especially in Chicago. So I don't know. I think it's time to think outside the box. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think those are hot takes. I think those are things that the National as a brand have to take into consideration because, like you said, for instance, convenience for vendors, travelers, hobbyists should be top priority. And that's why, you have to listen to the people that are attending these and have great feedback and have credibility when they do speak. If everybody's saying Chicago was great, location was great, everything was great in terms of the logistics aspect, you have to take that into consideration, or at least I would as an organization, especially if it's so close to that date of the new Fanatics Fest, right? So, I agree. I don't think that, being in the right city, I think Atlantic City, was an issue as well. There was no other option, hotels. It was kind of away from it. At the end of the day, the venue is going to be probably the most important thing, along with the accommodations that come with it, the food, the convenience, the location, all that comes into play because after the shows, they end at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. each night. People still carry on with their after parties, right? Their trade nights and whatnot. So having, a close proximity, I think makes sense for the organizers, and they definitely have to take these into consideration if they want kind of like that future of the national. And I want it to happen because they have some cool stuff going on. So it's just maybe it is a matter of changing dates. And Chicago is a city that's very popular for trade shows because of the convenience factor, right? So maybe choose more of a downtime where it's not as busy in Chicago. I would imagine summer's pretty busy in Chicago in general.
Very.
Yeah, so maybe May is an answer, or a different timing is an answer where it's more separated, and maybe it's a downtime in Chicago where, hotels are available. We're not paying hotels at a premium. I think that becomes an issue as well. So, there's a lot of things that I guess we could say from this end that the National can do to kind of protect their brand and move forward. But I guess that's why we're sitting on this side, right? It's a lot easier for us to, criticize them. And as Will would say, I would just say, shout out the National and Cincinnati.
Oh, a little inside joke there. But yeah, you know what? Listening to feedback, always a good thing. Always a good thing. And when you said that, I was reminded that the card and memorabilia dealers, remember, they voted to see where they want the 2026 to, the national for the 2026 to happen. Because next year, 2025, is at Chicago. And the way they voted for 2026 was Chicago. It's back-to-back in Chicago. 170 out of 333 ballots cast voted for Chicago. 111 for Atlantic City and 52 for Atlanta. Atlanta was on the bill this past year. But if you add Atlanta and Atlantic City together, you're still not getting more than Chicago votes. You know what I mean? So it seems like there's just a growing and bigger support for Chicago. Rosemont to be more precise, but still accessible to a great city like Chicago.
Those guys that voted Atlantic City are the guys who do breaks. They're all about the breaks.
Oh man, that could be a whole other episode. But yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully the national, we don't want you to fail. We want there to be an even better national next year and the year after, because we definitely want to experience it. If you're a sports car collector, you got to go there at least once. I know that a lot of our friends have been saying that. It's just too bad Fanatics was announced that they're competing this year, and I don't want to miss the inaugural event, so that's why. But definitely on my hobby bucket list. All right, we'll end off there for the Friday episode. Thanks for joining us. We always appreciate you guys. If you haven't rated us and you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you give us 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll have a brand new episode for you on Tuesday. Talk to you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.